Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis, and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble, and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook, and I just posted yesterday a really great interview with the president of Legacy Precious Metals, who is discussing why you need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903.
As a constitutional law attorney, former senior legal advisor, and personal counsel to President Donald J. Trump, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Jenna Ellis Show. I'm Jenna Ellis, and glad to have my good friend Raheem Kassam, who, of course, is the editor-in-chief of the National Pulse, that you should be subscribed to, as well as his Substack. You get a ton of great information. Everyone always asks me, where can we put aside the bias, the fake news, and actually get to the truth and reporting of what is going on? Of course, Raheem has his own opinions about a lot of things, but the National Pulse is an excellent resource for fact-finding and for truth-telling. So, Raheem, thanks so much for joining me today, and I wanted to just get your take overall as to where we're headed in 2023, because of course we're laying the groundwork now for the next presidential election in 2024. So we have the new Congress, we have a lot of these new committees on, the Select Committee on investigating the weaponization of government and about China. Are they really going to get anything done, and how may this play out to potentially the Republicans' favor instead of the Democrats over the next 2 years?
Well, my experience in this stuff and my experience on Capitol Hill now over several years has been that the Democrats always take the ball and run it down the field. I don't watch American sports, so you'll have to forgive my garbled metaphors. I'll try.
I don't either. We're in the same boat, so all good.
I'll try to do the American football metaphors. And then what the Republicans do is they win possession, or they have possession, and they kind of take two steps forward and one step back. And so I think, I you'll be aware, coined the term McLeadership. You helped a lot in popularizing that, as did some others. And I looked at this fight. Everybody was telling me, "Oh my goodness, are you watching this? Turn on C-SPAN. This is amazing." And then all the reactions I've heard on the back of it were like, "Oh my goodness, C-SPAN was amazing. You had to watch it. You got to see it. It was like a wrestling match." And I just think to myself, wrestling matches are kayfabe. They're kabuki theater. It's fake. It's staged. And if you manage to make that comparison, you have to be able to parlay that comparison into what we've been seeing on Capitol Hill now, well, for time immemorial, really. But the theatrics of it are getting overdone here. The circumstances will never materially change unless you materially change leadership, which is why, despite all of those rounds of voting and all of the so-called concessions that were made, not to say that Gates and co, wasted their time, because I don't think it would have been better to fast track that process either. But I don't necessarily see that materially we can expect things to change. Now, we will get committees, we will get hearings, we will get clips, we will get Instagram reels, we'll get tweets from committee members, and we'll get gotcha moments, right? Like Kevin McCarthy had his gotcha moment about Eric Swalwell last week, and the Intelligence Committee that and so on and so forth. But unless your job, your role, your concern is moving the deck chairs around the Titanic, then tweaking in and around rules committees and who sits where, and who gets to give the apple to the teacher today, doesn't really drastically change anything in any ordinary Americans' lives. It won't really even change very much here on Capitol Hill, and it won't really change much in terms of staffing on Capitol Hill, let alone change the impact your government has on your lives. That is a far larger question. That is a far bigger thing, and it has certainly more, I think, to do with what's going on in Davos than it does in DC. But I don't know about you. I couldn't get particularly excited after all of that time, and you still end up with a completely out of touch California congressman as the Speaker of the House.
Yeah, and that's a great point to say that the fundamental underworkings are not going to change until you actually have genuine leadership or regime change. And so we do have some of these committees that are now steered by Republicans that may or may not be productive in terms of oversight, because a lot of this really is theatrics. A lot of these members of Congress, not necessarily, some very well-meaning ones who I know personally, really do want to fact find, and people like Rand Paul, for example. I genuinely believe that he wants to know what happened with COVID, what happened with the NIH, and what happened with respect to Dr. Fauci. He wants answers, and he wants to hold people accountable. But a lot of the theatrics that the members of Congress play to are just for their 30-second clip on the nightly news or their spot on the Sunday shows. How is that genuinely going to impact our lives? Well, the truth of the matter is not very much. There was a Twitter poll that I conducted, whether or not you think that, Twitter is a best representation of the masses. I think it's at least a good representation of people who are paying attention to politics as much as you and I are, which sadly to say is quite a big swath of America. But it was interesting to me that a large percentage, as of the last time I checked this poll, somewhere around 85% of respondents, over thousands of people, said that they didn't support Kevin McCarthy initially, but thought he's doing a better job than they anticipated. And I'm thinking, okay, it's been a week. How exactly is he doing a better job? He's done some news conferences, but that's about it. So in terms of the theatrics, though, and the fundamental lack of regime change, that can be said for the Democrats in the context of the Biden documents, right? Because here's my theory, and tell me what you think about my theory. And for listeners of this show, they'll know where I'm going with this. I think that it is highly suspect where the Biden documents, where they were found, how they were found, the time that they were found, and they are being used to set up this house of cards that will bring down Biden, not change the regime, because we all know that this is, the Obamas and Clintons and the Democrat Party that is just taking out one cog and will insert another one. They want to take out Biden and replace him with someone else that they can manage. So it's not genuinely a regime change, but they do that then under a pretext of then having the same principles and the same rule of law that will then take out Donald Trump in 2024 and say, hey, if Biden's taken down by these possession of classified documents and we went after him and we made him resign or him step down from re-election, then we're coming after you on the same thing. So I really think this is all about Trump rather than Biden.
It's always all about Trump. I mean, and it really is true. It's really from this, neck of the woods. It really is always about Trump, and not necessarily Donald J. Trump the man, but Donald J. Trump the movement. Right? It is about bringing the drawbridge up and filling the moat and making sure that none of you, disgusting run of the mill, working class people can get your hands on the levers of government. That's what they think of you. And so all the apparatus, and I agree with the take of using Biden. Listen, they've already used Biden plenty, okay? Over his entire career, Biden has been a foil. right? He has been a tool of the political establishment. He has never been a leader of it. I was thinking about this the other day, and if anybody can correct me, I'm willing to be corrected. Remember when Obama was elected, Jim Messina and David Axelrod did a worldwide tour as the geniuses who got Obama elected. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
When Trump was elected, the whole media race to hand the congratulatory, as much as they would like to congratulate that side, parts of the campaign to Steve Bannon, right? Why? Who ran Joe Biden's campaign? Who's that person? Who's the mastermind? Most votes ever in American history. Who's the mastermind? Can you name that person? You can't. Do you see them giving TED Talks? You don't. Because it was the apparatus that Biden allowed himself to be used by, and not an actual, vote winning strategy, electoral strategy that actually convinced a record number of Americans to go out and vote for Joe Biden. That's the tell, right? In amongst all the other tells that we know from the last election. And so Biden himself will probably be quite aware of the fact that, again, he is being used here to stop Donald Trump. And again, I don't necessarily mean just Donald Trump the man, but I mean Donald Trump the movement. And he'll be perfectly okay with that. I mean, you have to cast your mind not so far back to the the Hitlerian speech with the red backdrop and the scene out of some kind of Second World War film of Joe Biden, to realize that, again, he's not, you can't put him up there as your philosophical leader. You can't put him up there as as somebody that grabs eyeballs and and people go, oh my, what a wonderful whatever that person is. It doesn't work. And when they do try it with him, they always end up coming off worse. So here's my take on what's going on with these documents. Yes, I agree with you. The timing is obviously suspect. But we have to we have to bear it in mind, but we have to kind of get to where they're trying to go here, right? Because they're always 5, 6, 7, 8 steps ahead of us. When we're thinking politics, as our side has been thinking for the last couple of weeks, who's going to be the speaker? What concessions are they going to make? We throw all of our attention into that. They're thinking both politics, public policy, philosophy, governance, everything, right? And they move in lockstep with each other. That's why they meet in Davos, right? It's to talk these things through, to plan the future without our consent. So what catches us up with their level of thinking here? It's what they're going to choose next. Who is their next candidate? And I don't think it's somebody like Gavin Newsom. I don't think it's somebody like Kamala Harris. I think they're going to do what they did back in 2008, which is come up with somebody who's kind of been around a little bit. You might know of them if you're really wonky and really attuned into politics and what's going on at Capitol Hill. But really what they want is what I call a deep state populist. And deep state populism was really what the Obama administration was about. It was about the popular picture of a man who was an outsider, right? And then governed as more of an insider than kind of anybody has ever governed as. This is what I think they're going for next. I think the Obama model they saw as a raging success, and I think the way I look at it was when Emmanuel Macron was nothing but a lowly finance minister in France, and then suddenly overnight every media outlet in Europe started talking about him. I went, hold on a minute, something's happening here. They're planning something with this guy. And funnily enough, I bumped into him in Westminster around that same time. And I said to him, I think you're going to be the next French president. It looks like you're being lined up to be the next French president. And he goes, oh, thank you very much. And I just said, I didn't say it was a good thing. And he just sort of walked off in the other direction. But that's what I think they're going for. They're going for America's Macron.
So how do you think that Obama and his legacy would react to that? Because a lot of people are under the impression that Obama is behind a lot of the deep state and he has grown so powerful. But then there is kind of this model that he's just also part of this whole regime. And my view of how the Democrats view their own constituents and their own composition and makeup of their party is that everyone is fungible. Everyone, including Obama, including George Soros, including Klaus Schwab. I mean, everyone is fungible. And if you were no longer relevant and useful in a very just dramatic utilitarian way, we will just take you out and insert someone else. So I don't particularly think it matters to them what Obama thinks, but what say you?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's a Politburo, right? It's extremely Soviet in the way this operates. If you're watching one person, two other people are watching you. It's those scenes out of Chernobyl, right? The drama based on the nuclear disaster, and in some ways, yeah, okay. It's like a lot of people come to Washington D.C. thinking that they're going to be working in the television show The West Wing, right? And they end up working on the television show Veep. It's sort of like that. That this is. It feels like it might be Chernobyl, but actually it's the comedy The Death of Stalin, which, if anybody's seen that, is far more on the money of how the DC Politburo operates. So it doesn't matter. They're all fungible. Some are more than others. I mean, if you think about it and you go, okay, Cairo's speech, all of these big moments from Obama. He never actually came across as a thought leader himself. He was always channeling what something that had already been asserted elsewhere, whether it was in academia or whether it was coming from street protests or whatever. He would just take the populist elements of those things and have them on a teleprompter, right? He was a telepopulist. And I think this time around, they're going to be looking for somebody who looks and sounds a little bit more like a philosopher king, who looks and sounds a little bit more thoughtful in and of themselves, in order that they can sort of pretend that he's not a puppet or she's a puppet, but they will certainly be a puppet.
Interesting, because I have thought for a while that they were setting up Gavin Newsom, and but your rationale really makes sense, and especially when you look at their overall perspective, not just globalist in the sense that we tend to use that term in terms of their philosophy, but kind of their globalist perspective of looking at more than just sheer brash politics. They are concerned about philosophy and culture and academia and infiltrating and influencing all of these institutions. So a philosopher king would make more sense, especially as a direct contrast to what has been coined by the mainstream media as Trump fatigue. And seeing that some of how they have tried to characterize Trump as lacking intellectualism, then they would put this person as a very, very stark contrast. And, as you were saying, they have these meetings like Davos this week that, they all get together and they talk about philosophy and they do all these things. And I'm sitting thinking, yeah, great. And we have CPAC. Excellent. Like what are we doing as conservatives to understand and build upon our philosophies to take over and infiltrate and influence culture and philosophy and academia and these institutions that then politics is downstream from. I mean, I don't even go to CPAC anymore for reasons we've already discussed, but going to some of those meetings previously, that's not, your beacon of intellectualism right there. I mean, it's just a bunch of people getting around, drinking and taking selfies and MAGA drag queens. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's laughable.
Lots of pummeling at the CPACs. Yeah, it's very much a waste of time nowadays. Look, it doesn't necessarily come down to how these things are organized, but it's who constitutes the core of the audience. And unfortunately, whether we like it or not, in fact, it's in a lot of ways our fault. Corporate America, the corporate Western world, is where so much of the World Economic Forum exercises power through. They take their money, they take the corporate cash, They then launder the corporate line, right? Whatever Pfizer wants out there, WEF will help, etc., etc. And it goes right down to sort of smaller multinationals. It's not just the huge conglomerates that you hear of every day, and they all help each other out, right? So many deals are done in a forum like that, and we don't have anything. I wouldn't even say anything close to it. We don't have anything that is even remotely, on the same page as that sort of thing. Because what happened was, and we have to own this, Republicans allowed their party, their leaders, their moral philosophy to be couched almost exclusively in free market capitalism terms, even when it wasn't free market capitalism that they were seeing, experiencing, and supporting. They then put their shoulder to the wheel on things like Citizens United and allowed for endless corporate cash to be plowed into the politics. And then the left captured the corporations. And so now you have a corporate system across the Western world, which is wildly out of control, wildly out of touch with the public that they pretend to serve, either as socially responsible companies, or just as customers, right? Or just serving them as customers alone. And again, what are the rights inroads to corporate America, to corporate Britain, to corporate France, to corporate Germany? We don't have any. And so we have two options in front of us. We either develop those relationships, lobby shops, whatever you want to call them, and start getting corporates to pay heed of the rights perspective again, or we severely attempt to neuter corporatism, not capitalism, not the free market, but corporatism, where state and business work hand in hand. There was a word for that in Europe in the last century, and that word was fascism, when corporations and governments came together and inexorably created monopolistic situations that the ordinary members of the public couldn't, even in their largest, unionized conglomerates in and of themselves, could not usurp. That was called fascism. And now we call it the status quo in most Western nations around the world. And newspapers and magazines and all of those people will flood Davos these coming weeks in order to support that. So that's what I mean. That's where I'm going when I say, yeah, we can move the deck chairs around the Titanic on Capitol Hill as much as you want. You can get a different comms staffer in a different position and say, oh, well, I know that person, so things are sure about to improve. No, they're not. The bigger problem here is the entire governance structure of the Western world. And as I can see it so far. So I'll give you one more example. I know I'm rambling, but I think it's good rambling. So I'm going to continue.
I'm not stopping you, so keep going.
I was thinking to myself earlier, if I needed an America First economist really quick, who can I call? And I just thought to myself, that's actually very difficult. You have people who are in and around the America First movement, but who I wouldn't necessarily say are strictly America First economists. You have people like Stephen Moore and those guys, but they really come from a more of a Reaganomics kind of background and a more of a free market capitalism background. Again, free market capitalism. I don't know. And then I was thinking the same thing about a whole host of other areas, policy areas, industries, and thinking to myself, who could I just call? Who could I email? Who could I get an answer out of on so many of these different things? Foreign policy, as an example. Who is a practitioner? Not somebody who's well read on these things, not somebody who writes interesting articles, got loads of those people, who is a foreign policy practitioner in the America First movement who I can call up and say, right, I need to know about, this particular part of the world and, how many rivers are there, how that operates geopolitically, what are the interests surrounding. Again, it's incredibly difficult. And I know that as a movement, the right, in modern times and in our political parlance, we've tended towards the kind of populist brute force option of assailing the establishment and the so-called experts, because I don't like the phrase experts either, right? That's why I used the word practitioner there. But at some point, we're going to need to develop our own class of people that we can send into these institutions to actually tell them what to do. Unless your idea is that we just get rid of the State Department entirely, right, and
Which
get rid
that
of
would be
all.
great.
Well,
That would be great. It'll never happen, but
probably
that
would be
absolutely would be.
better.
Let's bring the government and the federal government down to its actual constitutionally vested powers instead of this expansive administrative state that is fully unconstitutional. I mean, we could close 98% of federal agencies if we actually just looked at the text of the Constitution and mirrored that in what's actually allowed. We'd have so many of these departments that would close. But I think you hit on something, Raheem, and just in the last couple minutes that I have with you, that's really important, because there is a difference between practitioner and expert, because someone can be an expert and teach and understand and be a philosopher but they don't necessarily put it into practice. That isn't their trade. That isn't their work. And they're not actually advancing and materializing any sort of change, and they're not making any sorts of production, right? So when you have the difference between people who just speak a lot and talk a lot, which you tend to find more in the conservative realm than people who actually go and do, that's where I think the disconnect is, because so often conservatives are always playing defense. So we're talking a lot, but we're not actually practicing, we're not exercising, we're not producing. And a lot of that stems from what actually my good friend Jeremy Boring, who's the CEO of Daily Wire. If people missed that show, go back and listen to that interview, because he made a really salient point that with the rise of the nonprofit culture, then we have essentially abdicated the responsibility of production to people who by definition say we don't want to engage in capitalism. And that type of presumption that nonprofits are better because they're more philanthropic, because they aren't out for profit, actually undermines the economic system that we are advancing as good by saying, people love to call people like you and me grifters. And I'm thinking, well, if you're not working for a living wage and you're not producing anything for which you earn a living doing, then that means that you're living off of government subsidies or in your mom's basement. So grifting is not earning a living wage. That actually means you're producing something that's valuable that people want to consume, and you are participating in a free market, genuine capitalist economy. And so where conservatism, I think, has really missed the mark is that we don't have the practitioners and the producers as much as we just have the expert class. And that line of defense has really gotten weakened, because going all the way back to our very poor sports analogies, because neither of us watch American football, is that if we are always just defending, we're losing yardage, we will never advance the ball. And that's what people loved about Donald Trump. He moved the ball forward in ways that we had never seen since Ronald Reagan. So closing thoughts.
Yeah, I really appreciate that as well as a thesis about where we go. And just to let people in on a little bit, you've hit on something that I'm doing right now. I mean, the National Pulse has been a non-profit since I took it over. And actually, since I took it over, I've wanted to change that because we should be competing in a broader marketplace. We should be, competing for customers. We should be innovating. I can't find a single good web developer, for instance, on the political right. I don't mean somebody that can build a website. I can do that. I mean really tech engineer type to do things that innovate on our side online. And again, one of those things that I can't find. And I think a lot of people rejected the expert class, especially rejected the expert class during the Brexit discussions in 2015 and 16, certainly rejected the expert class when they were telling everybody not to vote for Donald Trump because it would lead to, World War III. And here we are again on the cusp of World War III, and it was nothing actually to do with Donald Trump. But the reason that really, really speaks to me is because over the course of the holidays, the January 6th committee released its 96 pages of testimony with Ray Epps. And I looked at it, I sort of skim read it, And I thought to myself, oh, somebody's bound to cover this. And sort of a couple of days went past and I didn't see anything. And there were some tweets about it and things like that. Some people had grabbed some stuff, but nobody had actually gone through it and done a real journalistic deep dive into it. And a week went past and I thought to myself, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to be the practitioner here, over the holidays. But that's it, isn't it? Are you actually, grifter, imagine, are you actually doing the legwork that should be in the main corporate newspapers in America, right? All the news that's fit to print. They're the grifters. Anybody can publish 50 pages every day of what basically amount to opinions, right? Or feelings about what's going on in the world. But when it comes down to actually going through the documents, going through people's testimonies, and then the whole thing was 26,000 words. I ended up managing to condense it into about 4,500 words, still about the longest article I've ever written, right?
Wow.
I thought to myself, nobody's going to read this. I've just done this to pat myself on the back effectively, right? Like, oh, you've done it. Nobody else would do it. And I was stunned. It's been the biggest Substack I've ever written. It's about 200,000 reads, which of a 4,500 word article is a lot. And
That's
of course,
incredible.
that will go up over the course of time. But it just goes to show I was wrong about what the audience wants, what the marketplace wants out there. I think people respond to hard work and they respond to quality. So that should be a lesson to everybody out there. If you think, this is not something that's going to get mass appeal. I understand that 200,000 is about the same number as people watch somebody wiggling their toes on TikTok. But for written content, it's massive. And I think more people should be doing it. Listen, they're going to release the 14,000 hours of footage from January the 6th soon. That's a year and a half's worth of footage if you don't sleep and just watch it straight through. So nobody's going to be able to do that. It's going to take so many people. It's going to take volunteers.
Yeah. But Raheem, you're so right in the sense that you were a practitioner, because in the sense that you saw a need and a hole that no one else was filling.
Right.
And you went and actually were the practitioner and you did it. And that is exactly what innovation, ingenuity, and creativity is all about. And this is why work is a good thing. I mean, God created us to work. Is in his image. He is the great creator and he is constantly creating, and we, like him, should value work and we like innovating and creating. And so for people out there who think that, the best thing to do is just complain on Twitter or to say, what are you doing? And call out all of these nonprofits, say, what are you doing about election integrity or January 6th or, this or that, or the MIC leadership, or what, pick your pet issue. The question should become, what are you doing about it, listener? What are you doing to say, here's a need. What can I do to fix that? How can I create a product that will get 200,000 reads? Or to just see that. I mean, my entire media background and reason that I'm on this platform today was literally just because I saw how the Constitution was being taught improperly in law school. And I said, I want to fix this. I have a better, more substantive argument that isn't faith-based, it's legal-based, for why we are a Christian nation. And I took the time to write a book. I didn't know if anybody would read it. And then lo and behold, a couple of years later, it's sitting on the desk of the then president of the United States. I mean, which is incredible, right? And so that is the type of ingenuity and creativity that you're talking about, where you see something that is a hole that no one else is addressing. You have a passion for it, and go do it. And so this is why publications like the National Pulse are important. This is why people like you and I and what we're doing, and I know a whole host of people out there are doing. But as conservatives, we need to do more of this. And we need to not just abdicate this to the Democrats and the progressives to have all of their money channeled into productivity and outcomes. We need to be going, doing, and creating. So how can people find you, read your Substack? I'm going to read that 4,000 plus page document. I haven't yet, but you have teased it very well. So I'm going to go and read that. But I read everything else that you write all the time. So
I appreciate it. It's just raheemkassam.com or raheemkassam.substack.com. It's all over my social media as well. And I just want to add to that what you're saying. Like, it doesn't have to be a book or, a great undertaking of setting the legal profession straight on any of this stuff. It doesn't have to be going through January 6th testimony. Believe me, the people watching us right now, you do far more, far better than I can. Right? You are raising your children. Lots of people could do with your assistance on that, whether it's, a TikTok or an Instagram reel or an article or just a blog post or something that you find helpful in that area. It's about what the market needs, what you see out there is lacking, and what you have already done or can achieve in your life, and putting that, again, practitioner, right, into practice. So I think Jenna's absolutely right. And RaheemKassam.com for all of my work.
Excellent. Well, I always love all of your ramblings and the conversations that we have. So I think we always come to good conclusions. And be a practitioner. Go and do. And, like Thomas Edison said, he found, a bunch of different ways that it didn't work. And then he found, one way that it did. And so, you may fail, but that's the beauty of work and creativity, is that you can find your way and you can build the model as it goes, and you'll end up with something and in places you never even dreamed. So I know Raheem is, and we just take it one day at a time and are continuing to be productive in things that we're passionate about. So thank you, my friend. Really appreciate all of your contributions, and I look forward to reading your article and talking to you again soon. Thanks.
Thanks, Jenna.
Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis, and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble, and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook. You need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903.
Have you ever picked up a towel set because it felt so soft in the store, but then when you leave and you go to use it, it's not really that absorbent? It's basically a towel that is leaving you out to dry. That's why MyPillow has developed the MyPillow towels that actually work. I know, it's totally mind-blowing. Towels that actually dry you. Their 6-piece towel set includes 2 bath towels, 2 hand towels, and 2 washcloths. They come in a variety of colors. I have the sage green and the white. I love them. And right now you can receive a 6-piece set for only $39.98 with promo code Jenna. That's JENNA. So go to mypillow.com right now and click on the radio listeners special. MyPillow products come with a 10-year warranty and have a 60-day money-back guarantee. So to receive this amazing offer on the 6-piece towel set of MyPillow towels, just go to mypillow.com, click on the radio listener special, and enter promo code Jenna, that's JENNA, or call 1-800-564-8475. That's mypillow.com, promo code Jenna.